And just so I want to make it clear, because I don't have like a channel intro video, so I just want to make it clear right now, if, because I don't know what all of the types of videos I will be making in the future are. I kind of want to do like videos like this and like maybe vlogs on occasion, but I do want it to be known just in case. I fully and wholeheartedly support Palestine. I want to make that very clear. This is not a Zionist safe space. Leave. You are not wanted here. I am not arguing with you. This is not a discussion. Palestine deserves our attention. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Hopefully I will see in my lifetime Palestine be free. And also pay attention, keep eyes on Sudan, keep eyes on the Congo, keep eyes on West Papua. There's a lot going on, okay? I will be putting links in the description if you want to educate yourself. And yeah, obviously, you shouldn't be looking to a white Latin YouTuber to be telling you, what to do in terms of Palestinian resistance, but I just wanted to make that clear before we got any further into my channel, okay? So my name is Veronica Morgana. If I'm lying about my name, what else might I be lying about? Today, I have a video for you, and the video in question is going to be in the same vein. This is the cousin, the sister, the sibling to Mike's type of video where he discusses a show with pictures of the characters and recaps what the show is about. I really wanted to echo Mike, Carrie Can Read. Those two are my favorites for recapping things. And I don't have the budget of Mike, but I'm going to try, okay? We're all gonna try. And I want you to know that I saw Priscilla earlier this week, and I am echoing her makeup today. Priscilla Presley, iconic queen. I just want to I'll give you a brief overview of this show. This show, I feel like nobody fucking talks about. Nobody talks about this show anymore, and I want to know why. Because not that it's good, but it's also not terrible. And I feel like, the dark academia girlies should be eating this up, but like they're not. So I want to know why that is. So the show in question is Penny Dreadful. It had 3 seasons from 2014 to 2016 and aired on Showtime in the US and Sky in the UK. Basically, the basic premise is that different characters from different Gothic novels from the 1800s all converge on London together and all have problems together and are mentally ill together. And like, I just want to give a disclaimer before we get too far. If you end up watching this show, like if you want to end up like watching this show after I describe it to you, just make sure that you look up trigger warnings for this show, because it is gruesome, okay? Like if you can't watch like horror movies or like American Horror Story or something like that, you shouldn't be watching this show, okay? And I'm going to be talking about, there's going to be like a lot of gore in this show. I'm not going to show anything, like no pictures or anything or clips, but there's a lot of gore in this show, a lot of violence, sex. People are fucking like there's no tomorrow in this show, okay? Like there's a lot going on. And in that same vein, I will not be censoring myself in this video, because you know how people have to say like unalive and shit like on TikTok and stuff like that? I am not going to be censoring myself. I think it's stupid, and I have no brand deals or sponsorships that I'm worried about, so I can say whatever I want. So I will. So I'm going to go through all of season 1 in this video, and there's 8 episodes, so let's hop right in. So episode 1, it all starts with a murder. So a mother and her daughter are mysteriously and viciously killed in the Docklands area of London. And in the next scene, we meet Vanessa Ives. She is desperately praying. She has something going on. She is haunted by the voices and by visions, okay? And we love her. We love her for it. We meet in the next scene, the next day, Ethan Chandler, a sharpshooter in an American Wild West show who is not everything that he seems, okay? After he fucks a random girl who caught his eye at the show, he tells her that his show is moving on to Paris soon, and he won't be staying in London very long. He goes back to an inn that's like by the docks in that same kind of area where the murder happened, and Vanessa tracks down Ethan. She does a very Sherlock-esque rundown of who she thinks he is, you know, like analyzing his outfit, being like a threadbare jacket but an expensive watch. You once had money but not anymore, you know, like very, very, you know, Sherlockian things going on here. And she offers him a job. She needs something to get done. She's very vague on the details. But Ethan doesn't mind. He wants the money. He's fine. He's done a little night work before. He's done a little suspicious illegal job. So he's fine. He's fine. He's down. So she says, here, meet me at this address tonight at 11 p.m. And he's like, I'll be there. So that night, Ethan meets Vanessa at this place, and it turns out to be an opium den. We will have an Orientalism problem in this show. Okay, we will. We will. It'll be unfortunate. So they meet up with Sir Malcolm Murray, and they encounter a trio of people who are slightly off. That's how I'm going to describe them for now. So Sir Malcolm has a conversation with these guys. They're three guys. He has a conversation with these three guys in Arabic, and the transcript for the show and the episode itself don't actually translate what they're saying, which is really fucking annoying because I want to know, you know, what they're saying, but nowhere has translated it. So it's a mystery. A fight ends up ensuing. So Ethan and Sir Malcolm end up killing them, and Vanessa wanders off into a room full of dead bodies, blood, guts. This is literally within the first 5 minutes of the episode. Okay, so in there, she finds the body of a woman who's not dead. She's just a little fucked up in the same way that the three guys that they were talking to were fucked up. They're not right, okay? They're not fully human, but they still look like people, okay? She finds her, but like it's not whoever they're looking for. And when Sir Malcolm and Ethan catch up to her, Vanessa is like, she's not here. So the person that Sir Malcolm said that they were trying to look for is not in this building. So they end up fighting an even more dangerous looking thing, and that is this. They end up fighting this. And I didn't put the other people that they were talking to or fighting with on here because they literally just look like regular human people. But this is something else entirely, okay? So they end up fighting one of these. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I'm just going to call it Gollum. So they end up fighting Gollum, right? A Gollum. Gollum is in Lord of the Rings, not of Judaism mythology, right? So Gollum is in Lord of the Rings. So they end up fighting Gollum, okay? And they kill him. They kill it. And Ethan is like, what was that? What is this? What is going on? Who the fuck are you people, right? And Sir Malcolm is like, listen, just keep helping us for the rest of the night. Like, the night's not over. You still need to help us if you want your money. So Ethan's like, fine, whatever. So they end up going to a spot where doctors are cutting open dead people to do autopsies. And Sir Malcolm actually calls these people resurrectionists. But if we were to look at history very briefly, the Anatomy Act of 1832 would have pretty much entirely ended the resurrectionist practice because it made it legal to, you know, do autopsies on unclaimed bodies, so long as you did like, you know, bureaucracy and like registered it with the government. I'm not saying that this practice like wouldn't have existed, and also this is a show. I'm so sorry, I keep hitting my door with this thing. And also this is a show where like Gollum exists, so we kind of had to suspend our disbelief a little, but whatever. I digress. So Sir Malcolm asks for an autopsy of Gollum. And the proprietor of the place refers them to his assistant. So they go to the assistant, pictured here, who isn't interested in what they have to say. He is doing his own research. He does not give a fuck about what's going on with these three. But the minute that Vanessa lifts like the cloth off of the body and he sees what Gollum looks like, he is immediately hooked and does the autopsy for them. So anyone interested in the specifics, it goes like this. So the body is not experiencing rigor mortis like it should, which is when like your body locks up when you die. There's no way to determine age. The skin is also not normal. Gollum does not have regular human skin. It's kind of like an exoskeleton. And obviously the teeth are fucked up and so are the eyes. I'll put a bigger picture on screen here for you to see. So the assistant cuts open the skin / exoskeleton and pulls it back, revealing hieroglyphs. So it's very clearly based on this statue, which I'll put here, which is held at the National Archaeology Museum in Naples. And it's from the 30th dynasty, aka the Ptolemaic Egypt. This is like the period of Ptolemy and Cleopatra, like that era of people ruling Egypt. Which is really funny when you find out when these hieroglyphs are actually dated to, but whatever. After they leave, Ethan is like, what the fuck? He's like, I'm more confused than when I came in. Like, this is terrible. I don't know what the fuck is going on. Vanessa is like, okay, if you really want to know what's going on here, come to this address tomorrow at noon. Okay. So the next day we see the police at the scene of the crime from the opening, and it's absolute carnage. Absolute carnage. But it's not giving the same MO as Gollum, okay? So this is another beast entirely, in theory. So Ethan goes to the address that Vanessa gave him, and it turns out it is Vanessa and Sir Malcolm's townhouse, which I will refer to as the London townhouse for the rest of the season, because it is like their base of operations, essentially. So he talks to Vanessa, who's very mysterious and goth and sexy. She has a table full of tarot cards, and Ethan is like, oh, so you're one of those, like, silly fortune tellers, right? And she's like, not exactly, bestie. Do you believe that there's a demi-monde, Mr. Chandler? A world between the one we know and the one we fear? And he's like, yeah, actually, I do. I do believe in that. So they have a little bit of, like, a back and forth conversation, and Vanessa reveals sort of their true purpose here. Sir Malcolm's daughter was taken by a creature like Gollum, okay? And they hadn't realized that there was more than one of these Gollum guys. They hadn't realized that there was more than one of them until last night when they killed it. So Ethan asks what Vanessa's part in all of this is, and she doesn't really give him a real answer. He decides that he wants out because he's like, there's no glory in killing for money. And Vanessa is like, okay, pick a card though. And he does, and it's the Lovers. Yes, foreshadowing. Foreshadowing, we love to see it. So after Ethan leaves, Vanessa and Sir Malcolm have a little like debrief. And you know, like, is he interested? Will he be coming back? And the consensus is Ethan is going to come back. He's coming back. Like, there's no if, answer, buts about it. So we have a brief moment where we see some London newsies shouting headlines, and we get to know that the police fear that Jack the Ripper is back, which really interestingly dates the show to post 1888, because that's when Jack the Ripper was active. Anyways, so Sir Malcolm and Vanessa visit a Mr. Lyle, whose picture is not here, but Mr. Lyle, who is the head of the Egyptian and Assyrian Antiquities section of the British Museum, where we get a delightful little jab that real academia never happens at the British Museum, which is so true. All of my homies hate the British Museum. We all hate the British Museum. Fuck the British Museum. Anyways, so there's a little aside where they mention scarab / carrion beetles that Vanessa thinks are from Egypt, but are actually from Suffolk in England. And so Lyle looks at the pictures of the torso that Sir Malcolm provides, and he says that the hieroglyphs on there are late hieratic script from the 18th dynasty, for which, like, if you don't know ancient Egyptian history, that well. The 18th dynasty is actually probably the era that you know about, because that's Hatshepsut, Amenhotep III, and Tia, Akhenaten and Nefertiti, and Tutankhamun were all 18th dynasty. Though from what I personally know of ancient Egyptian art history, these hieroglyphs would not have come from the reign of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, just because there was a drastic shift in religion during that specific reign that started towards the end of Amenhotep III's reign and lasted until the end of Akhenaten's reign, where they shifted worship from Amun to the Aten, the radiant sun disk. Anyway, so Lyle starts off by saying that it's just like a standard funerary text, and it says that it can range, he says it can range from saying anything from a blood curse to like a blood transformation. So it could be like severe, or it could just be transformation. Like, it's not specific, it's pretty vague. And then he sees something within the hieroglyphs and he's like, do you have more of these? And Sir Malcolm is like, yes, I do. And Lyle is like, I want to see them, but not here, as in inside the British Museum. And also he very much has this sentiment of like, I don't know who the fuck you people are. And so he politely conveys this by asking Vanessa and Sir Malcolm to come to his little soiree Friday night. And so when Vanessa and Sir Malcolm are leaving, Lyle is like, do you know the source of the text? And Sir Malcolm is like, no. And Lyle says it's the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which you're going to have to deal with my tangent about this in a second. I just need water. Let me go on an art historical tangent really quickly. So the Egyptian Book of the Dead is not this very eerie or cursed thing, like movies like The Mummy popularized it to be. The concept of the Book of the Dead was that it represented your ideal afterlife, okay? It was not a book full of curses meant to curse people who opened your tomb or whatever. It was, it was just a way for you to represent how you wanted your ideal version of the afterlife to go. And there was no wholly one standard version of the Book of the Dead. It was like individualized for whoever you're talking about, like whoever's tomb this is. So this on screen is from the Book of the Dead of Hunefer, who was actually a scribe and may have actually worked on this himself. The scene is called The Weighing of the Heart and Judgment by Osiris, and this is an example of what I mean to say when it manifests your ideal afterlife. So let me describe what's going on here. There are two registers, the top here that shows Hunefer worshiping various different gods, and the main scene here with Hunefer and Anubis at the start. You read it left to right, so you see Anubis leading Hunefer into the afterlife, and then you see Anubis here participating in weighing Hunefer's heart against a feather, alongside Thoth and Amut, who is either going to devour Hunefer and or his heart, I can't remember, if his heart is not lighter than a feather. Clearly his heart is lighter than a feather, which is the ideal thing you want to happen, and he passes the test. So in the next scene you see Horus showing Hunefer to Osiris and Isis and Nephthys, who are behind him. So in short, Penny Dreadful is taking a lot of liberties with ancient Egyptian mythology in this show, like a horrendous amount of liberties, to the point where it doesn't even make any fucking sense, okay? But since it's a British show that has an Orientalism problem, you probably could have guessed that it would be like that. Anyway, so we cut to the street where the crime happened, and these women are talking to each other as the police are like bringing out the bodies, and Ethan is there and he looks pretty sus at this scene. He like walks away like kind of anxiously, and the women see him do it and they're like, what the fuck? So we cut to the assistant. Just because the show hasn't revealed his name yet, I won't either, but you can play a little game amongst yourselves on whether or not you can guess who this man is. Sembene, who's here, he works for Sir Malcolm. I'll talk about him a little bit more in depth when I give some like season analysis. It'll be brief at the end. And so he brings the assistant a package and he says, it's from Sir Malcolm. Here you go. So the assistant opens it and it's a very nice suit and an invitation to Sir Malcolm's Gentlemen's Club. So assistant and Sir Malcolm have a little chat. So Sir Malcolm, at the end of this conversation, manages to get the assistant on board with their whole escapade, right? And This is honestly probably the best representation of this character in any media I've seen. Okay, it's a very good scene. Okay, so when Sir Malcolm returns home that night, we see Ethan outside of the house, kind of contemplating whether or not he's going to go in, but he freaks out when Sir Malcolm comes home and he turns around and leaves. Also, it's storming outside. Thunder, lightning, it's storming outside. That's important. So Sir Malcolm is getting ready for bed when he sees a vision of his daughter, Mina. Yes, Mina Murray from Dracula, for all my Dracula fans out there. This is not what she looks like in the show. This is Winona Ryder playing her, but I have Winona Ryder here because the show made her blonde. And I think that's criminal. So we have this Mina. And so Mina is like, help me, father, and she disappears. Sir Malcolm tells Vanessa about it, and we find out that Vanessa was Mina's friend at one time, but was not anymore by the time she disappeared, and she has somehow played a part in the trouble that Mina is facing now. So we cut between the assistant going back to his apartment and feeling a little sus. He feels like he's being followed, but there's no one there. And Vanessa is praying and seeing a shit ton of spiders coming out of her crucifix. So the assistant goes inside his apartment and he has a false door that he goes through and closes behind him, and goes upstairs to his secret lab. If you have not guessed who this man is, it will become very obvious very quickly. So there's a dead body sitting in an ice bath up there. Clearly there's something very Mary Shelley-esque going on. Remember how I said it was storming out? So anyway, the body in question gets electrocuted and comes alive, and he's alive now. And yes, the assistant is Victor Frankenstein. So that is the end of episode 1. Wow, that was a doozy. Okay. Swiftly we move along to episode 2. So we open with a woman who's in a park late at night and a lamplighter passes by, and we think that that's it, but no, she is attacked by something. We don't know what it is. We don't see it. So the next morning we see Ethan waking up from sleeping on the streets. He's sort of confused. Like he doesn't know how he got there and he's in pain. So he goes back to the inn that he talked to Vanessa in, and he asks for whiskey for breakfast. So we cut to Victor and his newly established resurrected person. I don't have a picture of him up here. Don't get attached. That's all I can say. But picture any blonde, like any bald white man, and you have the guy. So he's like, you need a name, maybe like Adam or something. And he's like, actually, no, you know what? You can choose your name. And so he flips through a book like very exaggeratedly and like shows his new resurrected man how to, choose a name. And he chooses Proteus from Shakespeare. So eventually Victor has to leave to go to work for Sir Malcolm, and he leaves Proteus behind in his lab. Back at the inn, Ethan is still drinking his whiskey breakfast when the most beautiful woman alive, Billie Piper, comes and steals some of his whiskey and sits next to him. And he's like, well, hello to you too. Hello. And so they get to talking, and she tells him that she lives upstairs and she used to work in the looming trade before, like when she first came to London. She's Irish, by the way. But she fell out of work because of machines. And she's ill, though. She's coughing, and we all know what coughing means in the Victorian era. So they introduce themselves, and she is Brona Croft. According to her and the show, Brona means sadness in Gaeilge, but since this is a British show, who the fuck knows if that's true? Anyway, so she says thank you for the breakfast and heads out, and Ethan immediately asks the pub keep if they have any rooms available. So he is down bad for her, and I would be too, because it's Billie Piper. Anyway, so Victor shows up at home base, the townhouse, and and they have him examine the bones of Gollum, and he's like, oh, how did you remove the skin so quickly? And Vanessa goes, carrion beetles. And he goes, Essex? And she goes, Suffolk. And he's like, fair enough. And so he asks if they've translated the hieroglyphs, and Sir Malcolm says that they're from the Book of the Dead. And really, Victor is only interested in ancient Egyptians for their idea of eternal life. So this means to say he doesn't really give a fuck about this. But he's here. So Vanessa does find out that Victor does like romantic poetry, though. Like, not romantic as in romance, but romantic as in romantic with a capital R, as in Shelley, Keats, Wordsworth. The romantic era of British literature. So Victor's examining some of the blood from the creature, and he says that it's human blood, or at least the blood of a vertebrate. But any more detail that they want, they're going to have to get a hematologist on board, because this is outside of his wheelhouse. And Sir Malcolm is like, great, I'll find one and you can consult with him. And Victor's like, yeah, but my own work. And Sir Malcolm is like, you're going to want to do this. And he gives him his pay. And Victor is like, you know what? I will have time. And so he's like, let me know about those hieroglyphs. And he leaves. So Vanessa figures that Victor has some sort of secret, but, you know, she doesn't know what it is. Finally, we get introduced to the slut of the century, Dorian Gray. This is Reeve Carney, by the way. For any Hadestown fans, this is what he was doing before Hadestown. Literally, like, right before Hadestown. Because this season ended a year before Hadestown started working in London. So this is what this man was doing at the time, okay? So Brona shows up to his house. And so meanwhile, Sir Malcolm and Sembene show up to the police to talk about the murders of the mother and the daughter from episode 1. He is talking to the inspector as if he knows what is going on here. And he asks the inspector if the bodies were drained of blood. And the inspector's like, no. And he's like, oh, well, you know, Sir Malcolm doesn't actually give a fuck about this investigation, by the way. He's only sniffing out leads to find Mina. So anyway, we get back to Dorian Gray's house. And Brona is the subject of photos for him, like the risque kind. She starts coughing, though, and blood comes up. So we all know what that means for her. And Dorian Gray is like, is it consumption? And Brona's like, should I leave? And he's like, not unless you want to, aka the king of consent. And he goes over to her and starts like kissing her. They're like making out. She's a little nervous just because of her illness, but she like, you know, is fine with making out with him and stuff. Like, don't worry about it. So he asks if she minds if the guy continues to take pictures, and she doesn't care. So they start fucking. Anyway, we cut to Ethan, who has a telegraph from his father telling him to come home. The legal problems can be handled. Whatever legal problems he has. So he's not some silly showman cowboy. He is running from some heinous crime, okay? So we cut back to Victor and Proteus in his lab, who is starting to remember stuff from before he died. So he's remembering a song he used to sing as a sailor. So Victor pulls out a book about ships and stuff and points to pictures in it and is like, do you know what this is? And Proteus is able to recognize and name the stuff. We go to Mr. Lyle's soiree at night with Sir Malcolm and Vanessa. And this will turn out to be like the biggest mistakes that they make. The biggest mistake that they make this season, okay, is going to the soiree. So Sir Malcolm is trying his best to like get down to business with Mr. Lyle, but Mr. Lyle's not fucking having it. He's like, we're gonna do introductions. This is a party. Vanessa, go meet my wife. And so Vanessa goes into the parlor where the wife is supposed to be, and she's taking in the general vibe, the general splendor, right? When she meets Dorian Gray, and he walks up to her and he's like, hello. He wasn't even invited, by the way. He just showed up to this soiree, okay? So they have a flirty little conversation, and then Lyle calls everybody to attention, and he's like, hey, here's my guest of honor, Madame Kali. Yes, this will be a very 19th century seance, okay? It will. This is the type of shit that Houdini hated. Anyway, so of course Sir Malcolm and Vanessa and Dorian sit at the seance table. And I don't think that you need to be a rocket scientist to know that this is not going to go well. So Vanessa sort of gives off the vibe that she thinks that this lady is some sort of hack, right? Because Vanessa here is haunted by the voices and the spirits. So she's like, this lady's probably fake. But Do not forget Miss Helen McCrory, who's playing Madame Kali. Her picture is not up here, but she will become more relevant in later seasons. So she will be on my door eventually. Anyway, so Madame Kali summons something and gets possessed briefly by whatever spirit comes through. And the spirit that comes through for her is like, there's something else here. There's another one. And everybody's kind of like freaking out, like, what? Like, what do you mean another one? And so this spirit claims that Amunet is here, which is very funny because that's just a random ancient Egyptian deity that they chose. Anyway, so Vanessa gets possessed. This will be for the first time this season. We'll see. And she starts mimicking the spirit of Peter, which is Sir Malcolm's dead son, who died while the two of them were on a colonialist project in Africa. I'm not saying deserved, but deserved. Anyway, so the spirit, quote unquote spirit, stops pretending to be Peter, although all of the things that it said were in line with things that actually happened in real life. So Sir Malcolm is like kind of freaking out. And so the spirit stops pretending to be Peter, but says Amunet, no, much older. Which, okay, I guess. So this thing starts mocking Sir Malcolm specifically, and asking when the moment he knew he wanted to fuck her was. Not Vanessa. Don't worry, not Vanessa, but someone else. But it doesn't say who. And Vanessa saw the two of them going at it. This will be foreshadowing for later. When we find out more about Vanessa's backstory, you'll know what they're talking about. So this just goes really badly. Vanessa ends up shattering the glass of the table. The fires and the lamps go out, and she bangs out of the door. Like, she is, in Gossip Girl when Serena's like, I have to go. Like, she has to go. She has to leave. And so she walks straight out of the house and goes and fucks some random guy on the street. And Dorian followed her, like, out of the house and saw all of this happen. And which is absolutely insane. Like, anyway, she does get home eventually after this entire travesty of a night. Okay. So the next morning, we see Ethan and Brona having a little chat. And he asks if she's had any luck finding work, and she tells him about the photography thing. And she's like, don't you need to find a job? And he's like, I'm a maritime supervisor. I watch the ships go by, as in he sits at the inn all day and like literally watches the ships pass. So Ethan is like, he asks if she wants breakfast, and she's like, no, I have to sleep. And he's like, well, what about dinner tonight? And she's like, you're not mistaking me for a sweet little debutante at the summer fair, are you? And he's like, that kind never did take my interest. But she does say yes to going out to dinner later. So Sir Malcolm visits Mr. Lyle. And Lyle's like, I am not inviting that bitch back here, by the way. Just saying. Though she did kind of serve. Like, she serving what? I don't know, but she did. And Sir Malcolm is like, listen, I am so sorry about all of that. Okay. And so Lyle goes through the rest of the pictures that Sir Malcolm brings him of the hieroglyphs. And Lyle says, like, so you've had these translated? And Sir Malcolm goes, no. And so Lyle points out a figure that has a snake head, and he says that it's Amunet, a goddess, the hidden one. Now, okay, guys, I'm sorry. We're gonna have to do this again. So Lyle says that allegedly the following combination of hieroglyphs is not only new, but impossible. That it's Amunet paired with Amun-Ra. Now, he says that Amun-Ra is the quote-unquote original serpent prince, and that Amunet had a monster within her, and they can't have been paired together in pharaonic religion because their narratives have been kept completely separate. This is not true, okay? If we're looking at actual ancient Egyptian mythology, this is not true. I will get to why this is a problem in a second, and why this isn't just a case of like, well, Veronica, like, why can't you just have some whimsy and suspend your disbelief? Because this is a genuine problem, okay? Amunet was originally kind of like the feminine version or feminine aspect of Amun. They were both primordial like deities originally in Egyptian canon before they kind of changed into who they are and who they're popularly known as. Just making sure I'm still recording. Amunet was often paired with Amun as a consort or his wife. So they have appeared together in ancient Egyptian narratives, okay? But she was eventually overtaken by other deities in that aspect, especially by Mut, who has been more well known as Amun's consort, at least in the Theban cult where Amun was really elevated and really importantly worshipped. So Amunet was important, like, don't get me wrong, but she's not like a demonic being, okay? Also, neither Amun-Ra nor Amunet are associated with serpents, nor do they have a snake's head. They're associated with sphinxes, specifically sphinxes with ram's heads and griffins. And Lyle claimed that Amun-Ra was not named the Serpent Prince for any particular reptilian qualities, but for the power of rebirth, like a snake shedding its skin. Amun-Ra was literally never associated with serpents in this way. You can try and claim that Amun-Ra is associated with the Ouroboros, but this doesn't really hold up very well because the modern conception of the Ouroboros did not exist at the time that the hieroglyphs were allegedly written in the 18th dynasty, which was from around 1550 to 1292 BCE. And any circular snakes that the Egyptians would have had at the time were in the form of a snake deity called Mehen. And Mehen isn't even like the modern idea of an Ouroboros either. He's supposed to be like a path or a guide for Re's bark on the path to rebirth as Khepri in the morning. Okay, so the idea of the Ouroboros as we know it comes from the 1st to 4th centuries CE, AD, for those of you who are still using AD. Literally a millennium later than the hieroglyphs were written. I'll leave you an article in the description if any of you are interested in reading in the origins of the Ouroboros. It's really interesting. So for some reason, like, Amunet and Amun-Ra's coupling is framed as something that will bring darkness to the world. Amun-Ra is literally a solar deity. He is the equivalent in Egyptian canon to Zeus or Jupiter. He is like the king of the gods. This is like saying if Zeus and Hera gave birth to a child, Hera would become the mother of evil. Like, do you see how that makes no sense? What I'm trying to get at here is that the writers have a very big problem of transposing Christian ideas of serpents and their associations with the devil / Satan onto deities that has literally nothing to do with. And like, there are evil or really like more chaotic beings in Egyptian canon. They just didn't fucking use them. Like, I don't know why they didn't just use them. And this is literally something that's happening because Lyle literally says that who wants to know they're hunted by the devil? So this literally is the Christian Satan that is causing problems. But for some reason, it's framed as like Amunet and Amun-Ra when they have nothing to do with this. It's very frustrating. And you can be like, well, yeah, they're like Orientalist British people in Victorian London. But like, no, it's not the characters, it's the showrunners. They are never disproven in the entirety of the season that this is not Amunet or Amun-Ra, that's actually the devil. Like, there's nothing, they never get called out for like the Orientalist shit that's going on, which is something that other characters do to other characters in the show. They will call out Orientalist or racist or colonialist folly when it happens in the show. But this never gets called out. It really pisses me off. I'm sorry. I need water. Anyway, yeah, it really annoys me that they're taking like huge liberties with Egyptian myth here when it's absolutely not at all necessary. Anyway, so Proteus and Victor are going for a nice cute little evening stroll, and Victor is showing Proteus the world. So we find out that Proteus actually had a wife before, which is really unfortunate. And he has a very big moment of clarity where he's like staring at the ships, and then he turns to Victor and he's like, what am I? Like, he has a little existential moment. Victor does not have an answer to that, but he's fine because Ethan and Brona show up and they like have a little small talk introductions, and Proteus hands Brona a chestnut, which is like pictured here. This is the scene where that's from. And he's like, enjoy the fairy lights. And she's like, I always do. Brona is the best person in the whole fucking show, I swear. Anyway, so Proteus and Victor go home, and Proteus is recounting their entire journey, and it's very sweet. Proteus is like, I'm gonna make so many friends, like, you fucking bet. It's a very cute moment until Proteus literally gets torn apart, like literally torn apart by a man walking through his body and tearing it in half. Okay, so it turns out Proteus was not Victor's first go around on the carousel of bringing dead people back to life, because his first son has returned. And that's the end of episode 2. It's not looking good for Victor Frankenstein, okay? It's not looking good for him. Welcome back. I ate lunch in between filming these 2 episodes. So we're gonna move on to episode 3. We get a flashback to Victor when he's young and his dog Bradshaw died and he saw the body. And he's very clearly close to his mother, who's really the only one who like gets him. And he falls ill, just like he does in the original book, Frankenstein. He gets sick and his mother tends to him, but she also gets sick. And it's way worse when she has it. Like, she's not able to recover like he is. And she ends up dying. And this is what drives Victor to study medicine and anatomy, presumably for the ultimate goal of bringing his mother back. Obviously this is not possible anymore, but when he was a kid, clearly that's what he wanted to do. He's very emo, and anyway, so we come back to present day where the quote unquote monster is confronting Victor. He is also very emo and poetic. Like, his speech is like, think if you've ever read fan fiction written by a pretentious English major in their freshman year of undergraduate. That's how he speaks. Like, only interested in like Victorian era British literature. Yeah. Anyway, so we flash back to when the quote unquote creature was created, and Victor was not very nice to him. Like, he was very freaked out by the result of the whole thing. It was very bad. And so he bolted just like he does in the original book. He leaves him unattended. And in the meantime, Vanessa, where is she? Vanessa, she's like the biggest picture on here and I can't find her. Anyway, Vanessa gets a vision of like zoo sounds. Like, she's doing her tarot cards and she gets like an auditory hallucination / vision of like zoo sounds of animals. And so Mina is calling to her to ask for help. And so she goes and tells Sir Malcolm. And so we keep hearing the creature's story about how he finally came to London after learning to read and everything from outside. Like, he has all of Victor's books and he has a window that he looks at like the village outside, and that's how he learns about things. And so he comes to London and people are mean as hell to him, obviously. So a guy comes and helps him after he gets beaten up and offers him dinner. And this is Vincent Brand, who runs the theater, the Grand Guignol. I think it's Guignol. And so he ends up offering the creature a job and offers him to live in the theater and gives him his first ever name, which is Caliban, after Shakespeare's The Tempest. So he doesn't go by Caliban for the whole show, but for this entire season, Caliban, okay? So Caliban is going with the story that all of his scars and stuff are from a factory accident, because this is the Industrial Revolution and that shit happens all the time. And so he gets the job and he starts stalking Victor. And Victor is like, what do you want from me? And Caliban wants Victor to make him a mate. He is, unfortunately, an incel. We're gonna have to deal with this for the whole season, okay? So Ethan and Brona are fucking, and she's coughing a lot. And Ethan is like, don't you have medicine? And she's like, I can't afford any. And so immediately Ethan goes back to Vanessa and Sir Malcolm and is like, I need money. I need to work. I need a job. Vanessa's like, well, isn't that serendipitous? We're going on another expedition. So she tells him about the vision that she had. And he just straight up believes her. Like, he does not question this at all. And Vanessa gives a tiny bit of Mina's backstory. She was a governess and engaged to Mr. Jonathan Harker, which my Dracula book girlies will know that that's a deviation from the book. But anyways, like in terms of her being a governess, she was like a secretary. She was like a typist. Anyway, and so she got embroiled with another man who's not really a man. And Ethan is like, who is he? And Vanessa's like, we don't know. And Ethan's like, but you think you know where she is? And she's like, yeah, ever been to the London Zoo? So Caliban, meanwhile, is telling Victor that he wants a mate because he's an incel this season. And I'm going to keep calling him that because he read all of Victor's books, but he seemingly couldn't pick up one about women's suffrage. Anyway, so Caliban is like, if you don't do this for me, I'm going to kill all of the people you love. And you'd think he wouldn't want to subject someone else to the abject horrors that he has been through, but I guess not. So anyway, that night, Vanessa, Sir Malcolm, Sembene, and Ethan all hit up the London Zoo after hours. Ethan's not entirely sure about this because Vanessa doesn't really have like the clearest of clear ideas as to where Mina is, or what's up. But Sir Malcolm is like very suspiciously like, don't worry about it. You know, like whatever happens with Miss Ives, let it happen, insinuating that she is some sort of like tool right now. So Vanessa realizes that something is not right, like within 5 minutes of being in the fucking zoo. And she turns to Sir Malcolm like, what haven't you told me? And then a bunch of wolves appear in front of them. And they're about to shoot them when Ethan is like, hold on, hold your fucking horses. It's actually a really sick scene. I really like the scene a lot. So Ethan is like, don't move, don't fire. Miss Ives, don't turn your head. And he steps out in front of everybody and crouches down in front of the wolves and does a little like wolf communication moment and makes them go away. So they end up in the monkey exhibit where they find a young man by the name of Fenton, who is also not on this board. This is my door. He's not on the door. Who's in the middle of eating one of the monkeys raw, okay? He's clearly one of the almost Gollum people, but he looks normal. He looks like a human person. So for the Dracula girlies, he's like the Renfield of the season, even though he's not actually. To the point where I wish Renfield is actually there, but whatever. So they take Fenton back to the London townhouse where there is a dungeon in the basement for some reason, and they lock him up down there, and they're trying to get him to talk. He brings up Amunet and the Amun-Ra shit again, and will not say if he knows where Mina is, but he repeatedly insinuates that Vanessa is the actual target of whoever his master is. We don't know who the master is. It's not Gollum. It's something else, okay? Gollum is like the second tier of underling. He is like, it's like the big boss on top, Gollums, and then everybody else, like Fenton, okay? So Victor comes to the townhouse and he's like, what the hell is going on? I missed the party. And Sir Malcolm is being like pretty rough with Fenton and really like beating on him. Ethan is not a fan of this. He's having a big moral quandary and he does not like this at all. So Sir Malcolm wants Victor to draw some of Fenton's blood and study it. And Ethan isn't totally for this. And Victor calls him out for aiding and abetting in the genocide of indigenous people in America, which, yeah. Okay, yeah. So anyway, he's like, essentially Victor is like, how can you be so like, you know, uptight about this when you've literally contributed to the genocide of indigenous Americans? And so Victor's opinion is that what's going on with Fenton is more like a blood fever or along like a disease like dengue or like typhus instead of like a mental affliction. And so he suggests that a blood transfusion might help, as in like a way to undo it and maybe be able to treat Mina if she's afflicted in the same way. So Ethan is not like having this conversation like at all because Like, he's not down for experimenting on this kid, which is both a valid and invalid take. It is valid in the sense that this is like an older teenager who's not really in control of what he does, and he may or may not have been turned against his will. And like everyone around him is willing to experiment on him and like beat him to death, which is very jarring, okay? So Sir Malcolm definitely has Mina tunnel vision this whole season. But at the same time though, like Fenton has stopped being a teenager and is now someone or something that is fully willing and capable to commit cold-blooded murder and attack people. He will attack people unprovoked. Like, this is not, you know, a situation where he's like an innocent kid who's, you know. Anyway, so the squad eventually all agree to just move on and do the plan, and Ethan gets over it. So Vanessa turns on Sir Malcolm and she's like, what aren't you telling me? And she's like, did you guess that Mina wasn't at the zoo? And he's like, I thought it was a possibility. And it's gathered that the mastermind of this whole thing wants Vanessa, and Sir Malcolm won't tell her what for. And remember, he knows the reason. And Vanessa really figures out that she was bait at the zoo. So Vanessa and Ethan have a cute little chat where he tells her about Brona. And Victor confirms that he will be there for the transfusion, and he'll do it. And he'll talk to the hematologist that Sir Malcolm is going to bring in. He also says something very ominous, which is like, listen, whenever you create or deal with a new life or transform it, we're responsible for this now. And at the very end of the episode, Fenton is like seemingly feels or is calling for his master. And that's how episode 3 ends. Okay, so episode 4. We see Vanessa in front of a church, and she's talking to a young girl who's asking her like why she won't go in, what happens after death, blah, blah, blah. It's a nice little conversation between her and the girl. So Vanessa and Dorian hang out because Vanessa saw him walking outside the church, and she goes and follows him. And they're in Kew Gardens, which every time this scene comes up, I'm always like, ha, I was there. I was at Kew Gardens. I've been there. So they're flirty and cute, and they're talking about flowers and stuff. They see Rothschild's slipper, which is an orchid that only blooms every 15 years. And Dorian's like, excuse me, bestie, but I have another engagement at the theater tonight. And if you guys have ever seen Repo the Genetic Opera, you know the song At the Opera Tonight? That is this episode. Everybody is at the theater tonight. So Victor is talking to the hematologist, Van Helsing, and Victor is, and so they're having a cute little conversation, him and Van Helsing. And so Van Helsing reveals that he created a name for what's happening within the blood that they're looking at. It's called Hannah's Wink, which means that the blood contains something that like won't let it coagulate, so it won't, you know, like if you were bleeding, you wouldn't stop bleeding. Victor's like, well, like what is that for? Like, what purpose does that serve? This guy loves asking to what end, okay? If this guy is asking a single question, it is to what end? And so Van Helsing is like, well, if we really want to answer that question, it would help with consuming blood. So Van Helsing knows a lot more than he's letting on in this scenario. And Victor is like, did Sir Malcolm not tell you, like, the subject? Like, did he not tell you about Gollum? And Van Helsing is like, he didn't have to. Sir Malcolm is looking for a cure to something he doesn't understand. And Victor's like, and you do? And Van Helsing is like, yeah, pretty intimately, I'd say. And so Victor goes to the window and he sees Caliban standing outside in the street watching him. So he excuses himself and he goes to confront him, which is the objectively stupid thing to do. Because if Caliban really wanted to like try and get near the townhouse with like the intent to attack anyone, either Ethan or Sembene would shoot his head off before he got close to killing somebody. So Caliban is like, hurry the fuck up. You're not doing what I asked. And Victor's like, well, first of all, my lab is in shambles. No fucking thanks to you. And he's like, this shit takes time. And Caliban is not having that reasonable explanation. And okay, listen, I'm sorry if there's any Caliban stans out there, but I truly do hate him this season. He is so fucking annoying. He is not valid. And he gets better though. Like, he does get better. I'm not a Caliban hater, but he's really fucking annoying right now, okay? So we get a look at Ethan and Brona, who are making out and fucking yet again, and good for them. And we get a bit of Brona's backstory about how she was with an abusive man back in Belfast, and how she was supposed to get married to him, but she ran away instead. And we get the banger line from Ethan: I have such sins at my back, it would kill me to turn around. Yeah, okay, banger. So Ethan is going to take Brona out on the town after he does work today. And so Victor is trying to do the blood transfusion on Fenton. And let me give you a spoiler. It doesn't go well. It doesn't work. So Ethan and Victor are like arguing. They argue like brothers. They are Sir Malcolm's two sons, if you will. Anyway, so Sir Malcolm asks Ethan if he wants to go with him to Africa. And Vanessa comes in and hears this, and she's like, oh, you're not going to do that. And Sir Malcolm's like, why do you always have to roast me? And Fenton is not better at all after the transfusion happens. He still wants blood, so the boys are all arguing about what to give him. And Sembene comes in and just like tosses him a dead cat and is like, here. Because if anybody has common sense in this show, it's Sembene. He is calm, he's cool, he's collected, he knows what the fuck is up. He just does the thing. They could argue for the next century and he's already got it done, okay? So Ethan and Brona go to the theater, and so does Vanessa, and Dorian Gray is also there. So all four of these bitches are at the theater tonight. Also Sembene is there, keeping an eye on Vanessa, but all these bitches are at the theater tonight. The play is about a werewolf, which we won't acknowledge that for now, but anyway. So meanwhile, Victor and Sir Malcolm have a little chat, and Victor is low-key insulted that Sir Malcolm didn't ask him to go to Africa. But Sir Malcolm says that it's because he genuinely cares about Victor, and that Victor reminds him a lot of his son, and he doesn't want to risk losing him in Africa, but he doesn't give a fuck about Ethan, which is kind of funny. Anyway, so Fenton is like, oh my god, Master, you're here. And there's like creaking and stuff in the house, and Victor's like, oh, is that like Miss Ives? Because the noise is coming from upstairs. It's not coming from the basement. And Sir Malcolm is like, no, she's out tonight. And Victor's like, is it Sembene then? And Sir Malcolm's like, no, he's got the night off, in which he's looking after Vanessa. And so they go investigate, and Fenton has broken out of his chains, and there's also another one of these golem guys in Vanessa's room. And so Victor and Sir Malcolm end up killing Fenton and either driving this thing out or killing it. I can't remember. And yeah. So Brona and Ethan are meeting up with Vanessa and Dorian during intermission, and Brona gets all up in her own head about Ethan knowing like these fancier people, and she runs out of the theater. Her and Ethan have a fight, and she leaves, and she has like a big coughing fit, and she can't make it all the way home at once. She eventually does. So Ethan is all beat up about this because Brona essentially said like, this relationship isn't going to work. Like, you're literally fucking a skeleton every night. Like, I'm going to die. Like, why do you keep doing this? And they have a whole fight, and Ethan's very down about this. And so Dorian is like, let's leave. Let's go somewhere else. And so he takes Ethan to a dog fight, but this isn't like a traditional dog fight where dogs are fighting each other. This is where dogs are killing rats for some reason. Ethan is not a big fan of this, and he dips to the bar. And of course, like some pompous, like posho toff guys are trying to like talk to him, and he beats them up, which is absolutely hilarious. And you can, I don't know, make the juxtaposition, dogs killing rats, rat race, something analysis. So Ethan is patching up at Dorian's stupid house, and they're just kind of like hanging out. And they have absinthe, which is what Dorian is actually holding in this photo, which is really funny. And so they're talking as they're drinking, and Dorian's like, you're such a silly little cowboy. Like, I play my part too. I pretend to be human sometimes. And they toast to Vanessa because Dorian is so funny. And Vanessa, my love, she comes home and is instantly accosted by the voices. She knows that something happened here. So she finds Victor and Sir Malcolm and she's like, what happened? And Sir Malcolm was like, it, being Gollum, was here in your room and Fenton is dead. It was looking for you. Like, this thing was looking for you. And it is insinuated that Mina must have given Gollum her location, like her bedroom. And because Mina has appeared to both Sir Malcolm and to Vanessa before in the house. So it's insinuated that Mina knows Vanessa's room, right? And so Sir Malcolm is like, maybe Mina did it because you were such a shit friend. And Vanessa is like, well, you're really throwing stones from your fucking glass house. And, you know, you were a shit fucking father. And Sir Malcolm is like, low key, you're the shitty daughter that I, a shitty father, deserve. These two. Anyway, so Ethan is getting fucked up on absinthe. And Dorian puts on some tunes. It's Wagner's Tristan und Isolde. And now shit is going to go down. And by shit, I mean fucking. So Ethan is doing more and more absinthe and he's thinking of Brona and he's like all emo. And he's having a flashback to like every moment of his life up until this moment. And he and Dorian end up fucking. Yes. Bisexual kings. Anyway, everyone fucks everyone in this show, by the way. Like, there is no such thing as a love triangle. It is just a fuck web. It is a fuck web, okay? And that's the end of episode 4. Everybody is literally just fucking everyone else, like, at all times. It's really funny. Guys, look at my nails. I just did them earlier today for this video. Whew. Episode 5. So this is the big flashback episode. Vanessa is writing a letter to Mina. I wrote, hi, sexy lady, in my notes, as in Vanessa. So flashback moment to when her and Mina were young. So young Mina and Vanessa are so cute together. They grew up next to each other. So their families' houses were next to each other, only separated by a garden gate that was never closed. So they were besties. Like, their families were besties. And so they do like taxidermy and stuff together, which, okay. Anyway, I also wrote, I cannot emphasize enough that making Mina blonde is a crime, which it is. So Peter, Sir Malcolm's son, wants to be an explorer so bad. He's the older brother. Mina's younger, and then Vanessa is the same age as Mina. And so Sir Malcolm comes home from one of his expeditions and he's neglecting his kids. There's also a lot of passive aggression towards Catholics in this episode because Vanessa's family are Catholic and Sir Malcolm's family is not. And so there's a lot of tension going on actually when their families are together for dinner, but we don't know what it is yet. Until Vanessa finds out a very, very terrible secret, and that is her mother and Sir Malcolm are fucking in the hedges. They have a hedge maze, like the Murrays have a hedge maze. She finds her mother and Sir Malcolm fucking in the hedges. She never told Mina about this. And she's been haunted by the voices for like ever. And she becomes, because she sees this between Sir Malcolm and her mother, she becomes sort of like a klepto sinner where she like steals stuff. She's very like in this committing sins mode, essentially. And so we flash to when they're older. And Mina has met her boyfriend, but there's some gay shit going on under the surface. Because like Peter has like this kind of like inferiority complex. And Vanessa is about to get left on her own because Mina is going to get married. And she tries kissing Peter, but he's not having it. There's a laying on the floor moment where she's just laying on the floor. Me too. She looks so pretty. I'm sorry. I wrote that. I said, Vanessa looks so pretty and there's gay shit afoot. I'm sorry. Anyway, Charles Branson is a cheater. We're going to say that. So Charles Branson is Mina's current boyfriend, fiance, who she's about to get married to the next day. And Charles Branson is a cheater too. We are not going to let Vanessa take all the blame for this. So Vanessa, it's late at night the day before the wedding, and Vanessa can't sleep, and neither can Charles Branson. And she shows him around the solarium where all the taxidermy stuff is. There's very ominous music playing, so you know something is about to go down. So I want it to be known. Write it down. Let it be known that Charles Branson kissed Vanessa first. He made the move. Okay? She did not. So this entire thing getting blamed on Vanessa is absolutely insane. Okay? So they are fucking in the solarium. And I want it to be known too that, like, while Vanessa isn't like protesting or anything like that, he is very much like holding her down and like pinning her to the table. Like, it's not a complete, like, this show wants to act like Vanessa was the one who did everything and like she was on top. She was literally the instigator when she was not at all. She was, you know, not a blameless party. She did, it takes two to tango most of the time. She did indeed tango consensually, but she didn't start it. Okay. I just want, let it be known. Me trying to justify my favorite woman cheating. Okay. Anyway, so Mina sees them fucking in the solarium and she is understandably very devastated. Vanessa tries really hard to apologize, but the apology is not being had. If I were Vanessa, low-key, I'd kill myself, I think. That would be it. I'd be done. Right? So she tries to apologize, and Sir Malcolm, she goes to the garden gate and Sir Malcolm closes it on her, and Sir Malcolm's like, "You've ruined my family." And she understandably passes out after this. So now she has a disease. This is, no one knows what it is. It's like, she is she is bedridden. She's like rabid. You know, it is not looking good. It is not looking good at all for Vanessa right now. So Mina's gone. She has left the house. The Murrays and the Ives are completely separated now. They don't talk to each other anymore. So Vanessa's parents take her to a specialist in London, and by specialist in London, this means an asylum. So Vanessa is very understandably like, you should just let me die. Like, I would literally rather die. But she's brought to the asylum anyway, and they are literally going to lobotomize her if she doesn't start acting the way that they want her to. And she's possessed. Okay, this isn't like strictly mental illness. She is possessed by literally the devil right now. Okay. Anyway, you get to watch, like, if you watch the show, this part of episode 5 is the most gruesome shit on planet Earth, because it's a real look into what being in an asylum was like, because, you know, they like strip her down, ice bath, shave her head, you know, chain her up, straight jackets. It's not looking good. And so they do end up lobotomizing her, by the way. It's not the traditional going through the nose and scraping out parts of your brain. They drill a hole in the side of her head, and like, it's so gruesome. It's so gruesome. If anybody has ever seen the movie Sucker Punch, yeah, big Sucker Punch vibes. Anyway, so she ends up being taken home, and she is like, not like, you know, she is unresponsive, you know, like, she is very much not well, and that's to be expected when you're literally being lobotomized. Anyway, so the Iveses have a visit from Peter, because he's going to say bye, because he's going with his father to Africa. And Vanessa is back home, and Peter's going to say bye to her. She is so fucked up, you know, like, she is unresponsive. She's fucked up. And I feel so bad for Vanessa. Like, I'm sorry. I know she was home wrecking, but she paid for it in the most violent way possible, okay? She suffered 10, 20-fold for what she did, okay? Trust me. But if there's one thing that Eva Green can do, it's look emaciated. This woman knows how to look like a skeleton. Anyway, so Sir Malcolm, after Peter leaves, Sir Malcolm is there, or is he? He's talking to Vanessa, but Sir Malcolm is actually the devil in disguise. And so the devil is talking to her, trying to get her on side. He's trying to be like, listen, I can give you the best life. You can rule by my side. I want you so bad. She is like, I don't know about that. I don't know. So we get a very awkward bit where Vanessa does indeed, how do I put this lightly, fuck the devil. Yes. And I want you to know that her bedroom door where she's staying is open in case her mother needs to come in and like quickly look after her. And so in this, there's a lot of noise, and her mother comes up to the room and sees her naked on the bed, getting fucked. And like, you can't see the devil during this, so it's just Vanessa. And her mother literally dies of shock. She flatlines immediately upon seeing what's going on here. I cannot believe that I watched this show as a teen. I watched this like in later high school. Like, what the fuck was I doing? But yeah, anyway. Yeah, her mother died of shock. So eventually Vanessa gets well enough that she can walk around. Her hair is grown back, blah, blah, blah. So one day, Vanessa and Mina meet on the beach near their houses. And Mina is like, listen, I forgive you. You suffered way too much. Vanessa's like, no, man, like, I deserved that shit. No, you did not. Nobody deserves getting put in a Victorian era asylum, okay? Nobody deserves that. But anyway, Mina's like, I'm married now, like, to a lawyer, Jonathan Harker. Also, Peter's dead. And Vanessa's like, I'm so sorry for your loss. But this isn't actually Mina. She's been possessed. Like, it's Mina, but then she gets, possessed by, you know, the master thing. And here we are to today. I wrote, Sembene, you're so cool. And I don't know what I wrote that in relation to. I don't remember what he did. But Vanessa shows up to Sir Malcolm's house. And this is still, like, in where they grew up. And Vanessa shows up to the house and she's like, Mina needs our help. And we get the banger line, the most hardcore line in the whole show, the best line I've ever heard, where Vanessa, at the end of her letter to Mina in the present day, she's ending her letter and she's like, your father loves you so much he would do anything to save you. I love you in a different way. I love you enough to kill you. Bitch. And that's the end of episode 5. So, episode 6. Brona is dying such a miserable death. She apologizes to Ethan for yelling at him. And Vanessa, meanwhile, does a tarot reading. She pulls 5 of Cups and the moon, to which she hears people screaming and like waves, and we don't know what else she pulls from that. We just see 5 of Cups and the moon. So Vanessa brings this update to Sir Malcolm. She's like, listen, I don't know, maybe like it has to do with like a ship or the river trade where something fucked up happens, like something nautical, you know, something on a ship. And so Dorian Gray shows up to the townhouse and he goes to Vanessa and he's like, hey, want to have an adventure with me? And she's like, all right, haha, okay, slut. And so Victor, meanwhile, is in the basement doing an autopsy, and Caliban is in the theater working, and Maud, who is she's like the lead actress, shows up. Maud is like, hey, I brought my blood tube, it's getting clogged, because, you know, there's a lot of like Penny Dreadful type shows that happen at the theater, so she has like a blood tube, it's getting clogged. And Caliban is like, don't worry, I'll fix it. But he's also like, I'm a fucked up little creature. Like, he just has that vibe, which is really annoying. And Maud is like, listen, like, I'm not scared of you, okay? Like, and she's being so nice, and he has, you know, incel attitude, but also social anxiety, so God fucking help him. So Sir Malcolm is having like a little research moment. And why is this a more accurate telling of Dracula than anything else? I don't know. But he like finds the ship that's mentioned in the actual book Dracula. And anyway, so Victor brings the update. He did an autopsy of Fenton. So Victor brings the update to Sir Malcolm. He's like, well, Fenton was kind of normal, except maybe he had echolocation abilities. So otherwise, he's like a pretty bog standard human person, except he had, you know, the whole blood thing going on and echolocation for some reason. So also Victor is in the midst of having daddy issues, so don't really look at him. Anyway, so Sir Malcolm is like researching the ship stuff, and Sembene comes in, and Sembene is like, listen, Mina might be fucked up beyond repair. Like, what would you do if in that situation? Like, you need to know what you're going to do in the event that she is unsalvageable. And so Dorian is having Vanessa's photo taken, and it's not like a risque one, it's just a regular, you know, photo. And they're so flirty, and she's like, have you ever gotten your picture taken? And he, Dorian Gray, says, I prefer paintings. If anybody knows the story of Dorian Gray, you know why that's funny. Anyway, so Caliban is on his Phantom of the Opera grind, where he's spying on Maud. It's very weird. So Dorian asks Vanessa if she has any plans she asks Dorian if he has any plans for dinner, and he says not anymore. These two are the most sicko for sicko relationship. And let me explain to you what that means. So a Tumblr user by the name of TV Land Official made a post that says, I am a firm believer in the sicko for sicko relationship. Characters who are obsessed with each other, not in spite of, but because of whatever bizarre or off-putting or unusual things they've got going on. Guys who look at each other and go, you're the only motherfucker in this city that can handle me, and they're probably right too. Rivalries, romances, obsessions built on mutual hate, undefined close companions, any sort of thing. Sicko for sicko. Vanessa and Dorian are the ultimate sicko for sicko relationship in the show. Okay? So anyway, Victor is having dinner with Van Helsing, and Van Helsing is so cute. I'm sorry. So Van Helsing is having dinner with currently the most tormented man on planet Earth, and Vanessa has her little like sexy goth girl moment. She's going out for dinner with Dorian. For someone who hates being her dad, Sir Malcolm really is kind of her dad. Like, she comes down in her like evening outfit, and she's like, is it too much? And he is like, no, like, give us a little spin. So she does like a little cute little twirl moment. He's the dad of the year, and also the worst dad of the year at the same time. So he says that he's not doing anything tonight. He's bound to the ledger. Not true. So Sembene, Ethan, I did that in opposite order. Sembene, Ethan, and Sir Malcolm are going to go investigate that boat. Ethan is leaving Brona, and she's like, where the fuck are you going? Like, she knows she's dying. So she gives him her necklace of St. Jude. It's like one of those like small saints medallion necklaces. And it's of St. Jude, who's the patron saint of lost causes. So I think we all should start praying to St. Jude. So Ethan meets up with Sembene and Sir Malcolm, and this is a guy's night out, except Victor is not there. So Van Helsing and Victor are hanging out while these three go on a plague ship. It's not really a plague ship. It was put under quarantine, but that's because there's shit going on. I'll explain in a second. So Victor and Van Helsing are hanging out, and Van Helsing is telling Victor the tea. Like, don't tell Sir Malcolm, but my late wife didn't die by disease. I drove a stake through her heart and cut off her head. So whatever Mina is going through, Gollum, all of these people, Van Helsing's wife was that. And so Ethan is talking to Sir Malcolm about Brona, about her being sick. And Sir Malcolm is like, are you gonna like put her like in an asylum or something? And Ethan's like, no, like, I'm not putting my girl in a fucking asylum. And then Sir Malcolm's like, she'll cease being who she is. And then Ethan, man of the century, says, then I will love what she becomes. Ugh. 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 Me and who? I have a boyfriend. Me and him. But you and who? Anyways, so the ship that they're going to is from Cairo. So remember how the guys they were talking to in episode 1 were speaking Arabic, and were from Egypt. And this whole thing for some reason is Egyptian vampires, which is very odd. So the ship is from Cairo and it's in quarantine. And luckily for them, there are no actual civilians on board, or else they'd literally be blowing up a civilian ship. There are no civilians on board. So Dorian Gray and Vanessa have a cute little dinner date. Dorian mentions that he likes the ritual of Catholicism because she's Catholic queen. And slay, me too. And so there are so many crimes that are about to be committed here. So Van Helsing finally drops the word vampire to describe what's going on here. So he mentions Penny Dreadfuls, like the books, and which name drop. And so vampires in this world work like you think they would. Like in the Dracula sense, not in the Twilight sense, you know? So Vanessa, meanwhile, is hanging out with Dorian at night after dinner, and they're blatantly flirting with each other. These two are insane. Like, this is what I mean by sicko for sicko. Because these two are too powerful together, and that's why they're not endgame. Okay? Dorian is like, you know, flirting, and Vanessa's like, I don't know if I want to get loose, because if she gets loose, the town is going to explode. Okay? Anyway, Victor, in response to the vampire shit, is like, damn, that's fucking crazy. What the fuck? And so on this ship, there are rats, and they find a big boss. They find another golem guy on the ship. And meanwhile, Victor is like, why are you telling me all of this? And Van Helsing is like, just so you don't come to this conclusion by yourself, for your own good. And I pity you, babe. Like, you deserve a long life if it's not gonna, at least if it's not gonna be a good one. And you could yet astonish the world. And then Caliban comes and snaps Van Helsing's neck. Van Helsing is dead. I'm very sorry. He will not appear on this board again. He is gone. He's so fucking annoying. Anyway, so Vanessa and Dorian are about to fuck, and he needs to watch out. So the criminals, as in these three, haven't found anything on the ship yet. But I mean, you can't really call them criminals when the ship is actually full of vampires. So they get attacked by a bunch of vampires, and they are shooting them and stuff. And now there's a fire on the boat. I wrote Sembene Slay, which means, I guess he was doing a particularly good job in the fight. There are vampire chicks, like girls, and shit. It's a hot mess. It's a hot mess for these three. Okay. Vanessa and Dorian are fucking. She might kill him by accident. This is what I mean by sicko for sicko. He's the only motherfucker that in the city that can handle her right now. Okay. So he rips her corset off with a knife, and she responds by slicing his boob and drinking his blood. Yeah, she's crazy. She's a freak in the sheets, okay? A freak in the sheets. So there's a golem in the boat with Mina. Mina is actually on this ship, and the big boss right here, Golem, is also there. And meanwhile, these two are, in my notes I wrote, they are fucking freaky deaky style, which is absolutely what's going on. Okay. So we have a freeze frame moment where Vanessa encounters the literal devil in the midst of having sex with Dorian, and she like comes out of that moment, and she literally just gathers her shit and runs away. She bolts. And meanwhile, Dorian is like, he's having whiplash because that was the most bombastic sex he's ever had in his life. Okay. Like, anyway. So the boys, after the whole ship mess, are doing the whiskey debrief at the townhouse. And Ethan is like, listen, Murray, like, listen, Sir Malcolm, like, you're really sure you know what the fuck is going on all the time, but like, there are things you can't control. There are battles you lose because they weren't able to get Mina back from the ship. And we only have people that we trust, and like Miss Ives, and you need to start fucking trusting her, or you're going to be losing a lot of fucking battles. Because if they had brought Vanessa onto this ship, she would have been able to tell them that Mina was there, and they wouldn't have found that out at the last minute when they weren't able to save her anymore. And Dorian Gray is like torn up. He goes to his painting room, which we saw briefly earlier, but he has a room where he has the painting of himself that is like holding his soul, and he heals immediately. And that is why he's the only motherfucker in the city that can handle Vanessa, because he is invincible. So Vanessa is so freaked out. She gets back to the house and she starts floating off the ground and spinning while she's floating like she's in a microwave. And that's how the episode ends. It's not looking good. So, finally, we are in the last 2 episodes of the season. So, episode 7. So Vanessa is hearing things from the devil yet again, trying to get her on side. Personally, if I were her, it would have worked on me. I would have been convinced. But I'm also someone who Music of the Night from Phantom of the Opera would have worked on me. So I'm not really a reliable source here. So Vanessa is absolutely not well. She's possessed, very similar to how she was all those years ago when the flashback happened. And everybody else has to suffer for it. So you can tell when it's not really her speaking, because there's like a harshness or like an edginess to her voice, like a raspiness that's not usually there. And so she's not like fully as bad as she was back in the day yet. She's like still able to like, you know, sit up, walk around and like look kind of normal. But Sir Malcolm is talking to her and being like, yeah, you were just floating and spinning like you were in a microwave. What was that about? And Vanessa is like, she gets possessed and she's channeling Mina at first and then moves on to like demonic shit. And Sir Malcolm is like not having it. During her possession, she also ends up saying the N-word with the hard R, which, interesting choice. Not to like Sembene or anything, like he's not in the room, but just in general, and it's not good. So she is growling, she's possessed, she's making shit fly around the room. Somebody has to knock her the fuck out, and that is Sembene. He literally comes into the room, punches her in the head, and she's knocked out, which is, thank you, sir, for doing a good service, because she is being a menace to society right now. So Sir Malcolm brings Victor in to have a looky look at Vanessa, and I would not put this he's not a weak little man, but I would not put this little man up against her right now. So Victor's like, I'm gonna do a discreet examination. Vanessa's like ready to growl at him. And like, while I know that like Victor is like a weedy little kind of nerdy boy, he could, if necessary, beat the shit out of Vanessa if the situation called for it, but he really wouldn't want to do that. You know, he wouldn't want to get to that point. She's still possessed, by the way. So like, this is not, the examination does not go well. And so Victor leaves the room with Sir Malcolm and he's like, what the fuck is wrong with her? Also, is she a virgin? And Sir Malcolm's like, fuck no, but hey, don't judge her about it. She's not, but don't judge her. And Sir Malcolm's like, last night she went out with a young man, and Victor's like, I think he probably got her fucked up. You know, like, he puts it in the words of like, she's having a psychosexual response. And yeah, you could say that. So they're downstairs and there are a lot of spiders around, like the spider from, I looked up because I have a crucifix on my wall, but there were a lot of spiders coming out of her crucifix in the first episode and they have returned. And Vanessa is like screaming, this is not good, this is not good, none of this is good. Ethan gets to the townhouse and he's like, what the fuck is going on? Sir Malcolm's like, did you bring your weapons? And so this is why Vanessa is never allowed to fuck Dorian Gray ever again. So she has torn up her room. There's blood everywhere. Ethan is like, what the fuck is going on? Vanessa's like, she has a brief moment of clarity and she's like, forgive me, I'm not myself. Yeah, that's putting it lightly, babe. And so Ethan just like holds her hand, like he's very sweet with her during this whole thing, but it's fruitless though because she's still possessed. Victor very promptly sedates her. And Ethan's like, what is wrong with her? And Murray is like, she's been possessed by the devil. And Ethan is like, oh, fuck me. Like, great. The boys are all like, what the fuck do we do? I will say during this episode, Brona is very much forgotten about. She's fine as of right now. Like she's dying, but she's not dead yet. So I know you might be worried about her. You will not see her for this whole episode, but it's okay. Anyway, so the boys are trying their best to take care of Vanessa, but she is in the fucking trenches. Like, this is traumatizing for everybody involved. Most of all Vanessa, but if I were Sir Malcolm, I would want Dorian Gray's head on a pike for making her like this. Not that he did anything, but, you know, not that it's his fault, but I still would be mad as fuck and I would want that man dead. Victor and Vanessa are also like brother and sister of all time. I'm sorry, I know people might ship them, but I really don't. Like, that is her brother. I'm sorry. So Ethan is on Vanessa watch, and it has been a week of this shit, by the way. And so Vanessa wants a priest. She's asking for a priest. And Ethan says to her, I might have fallen in love with you. Vanessa says to Ethan, I might have fallen in love with you. And Ethan goes, you still might. Oh my God. And she's like, listen. She says to Ethan, listen, because this is her like brief moment of like clarity. She's herself. She's like, if you need to fucking kill me, kill me. Put me down if it is necessary. She's like, I know you can do it. This is awful foreshadowing. Okay, I will say that right now. This is awful foreshadowing. But that's not Ethan. We were fucking fooled. That is the devil in Ethan's form. And this is so sick. OMG. And so the devil in Ethan's form says, I want you to be the mother of evil. I want you to rule the darkness by my side. Shut the fuck up. Honestly, it would have worked on me. I said, baby girl, you need so much help. Both me and her need help. So the boys are sitting downstairs. Sembene is sitting in a chair that's like in the hallway of Vanessa's room, and the rest of them are sitting downstairs. And Sir Malcolm is like, are you going to come to Africa with me? And Ethan is like, no, I'm not. The boys are getting heated, but Vanessa is screaming. Victor goes up there. She just like threw Victor across the room, like bodily threw him across the room. And she is bleeding a lot. There's a lot of blood happening. Victor is doing drugs. He's addicted to morphine. It's fine. He senses a little something because after the whole throwing Victor against the wall thing, all three of them go back downstairs. The three of them are all talking. Victor senses a little something, and he's like, and honestly, what my mind is saying, put Caliban up against possessed Vanessa and see what happens. Because I want to see if she would tear him to shreds or not. But of course, Caliban is just like standing ominously outside. He doesn't come in and Victor doesn't go out. But anyway, so Ethan and Victor have a conversation. This is just between the two of them because Sir Malcolm's not in the room. So it's just Ethan and Victor. And Ethan is saying, listen, I'm not sure Sir Malcolm is being honest about Vanessa. I don't know why he wants her to live through this. Like, he wants her to keep suffering. And he makes the very astute observation that he is not treating her like a daughter. Like, she does not mean that much to him. And Victor is like, for some reason, Victor equates Vanessa or no, not Victor. Ethan equates Vanessa to Indigenous children who survive residential schools, which is a very not good metaphor. I don't know why the showrunners wrote that. That's really out of pocket and out of hand. But anyway, racism aside, I guess, Victor is like, can I ask you a favor? Can you teach me how to use a gun? So the boys are in the basement. This is what boys will be boys means. They are, shooting in the basement, and Sembene comes down and he's like, do you two mind? But in a nice way. He's not mean about it. Anyway, I wrote in all caps, seriously put Caliban up against possessed Vanessa for real and see how intact he comes out. Motherfucker can't handle her, I bet. Anyway, so Ethan gives Sembene, who's back on hallway duty, some food. And Sembene is like, wow, shit's actually good. Like, you can actually cook. I'm surprised. And we get a little bit of Sembene backstory, just a little. And by backstory, he says he has no story. We will learn more about him eventually. Anyway, so Sembene says to Ethan, you should call a priest. And he says that he doesn't necessarily believe in God, but he does believe in everything. So I am a Sembene stan. I stand behind him. I love him. He is man of all time. Anyway, so Vanessa is restrained to the bed. There is no hope for her right now. And so Sir Malcolm comes into the room and she's just trying to fucking sleep. And he is slapping her awake. He's like, wake the fuck up, wake up, wake up. And she's like, what? And he's like, you can help us. He is being a manipulative fucking old man right now. He is like, reach out to Mina and find her. You are in such a good state to do that. And Vanessa is like, I don't think that that's a good idea. She is suffering. I cannot emphasize enough how much this woman is suffering right now. I feel so bad for her. And Ethan finds out about this. He goes into the room, Sir Malcolm leaves and Ethan finds out about this whole exchange. And Ethan and Victor are not having it. They are pissed off. Ethan goes off. They both go off. Both of them are like, let her do what she wants. Ethan's like, you want a daughter? There she is. She's in that room. And Ethan is like, if you let this happen, as in her possession, happen so you can manipulate her, I will fucking kill you. I swear to God on high. I will kill you if you are manipulating her and having her go through this on purpose. And Victor is like, listen, at some point, if she wants to die, we have to let her die. Victor is very much in the camp of I will assisted suicide her if it is necessary. And at the end of that whole thing, Sir Malcolm is he doesn't really give a real answer to what they're doing. He's very mad about the whole confrontation thing. But later on in the night, Sir Malcolm is like, can you give me drugs to stay awake? And then Victor is like, oh, fine, whatever. Here's coke, cocaine. He gives him a cocaine derivative. And at least Sir Malcolm is self-aware because he says he doesn't have a shred of decency left, which is a mild way of putting it. So they called for a priest, and Father Matthews is here, and they're like, listen, she's possessed, and they want an exorcism, but finally, in a move that actually portrays exorcisms within the Catholic Church correctly, you can't do it. Father Matthews says, no, we need permission from the Vatican in order to do an exorcism, which is true. And so Father Matthews says that this is the worst case of anything he's ever seen. He is horrified. He tries to do the last rites for her, but she's still possessed and she tears out his throat. So Ethan is literally prepared to shoot her if necessary though, because he gets his gun out and she breaks through the restraints on the bed. He gets everybody else leaves the room. He gets everybody else to leave. And he's the only one that's able to get through to her. And she, in a brief moment of clarity, she is like, please kill me. Please fucking kill me. Please kill me. And Ethan is about to shoot her. until he brings out the St. Jude medallion and he puts it on her forehead, and he's praying. Like I said, this is kind of slayful because it is. And so he is praying like there is no fucking tomorrow, and it works. Vanessa gets unpossessed, and she's comparatively okay. And Ethan is like, okay, I'm fucking packing it up. I'm packing it up. Goodbye. I fixed her. When Vanessa wakes up the next morning, she says, I know where Mina is. And that is the end of episode 7. I also wrote randomly in my notes that Sir Malcolm and Vanessa's dynamic can be explained by Sir Malcolm being like, I could kill you, and Vanessa saying, not before I kill myself. So that's the end of episode 7. Episode 8, the last episode of the season. Everything culminates in the theater. Vanessa has gathered that Mina is at the Grand Guignol because Mina was like repeating a line in the show that Vanessa saw when she was at the theater. And Sir Malcolm finally has the wherewithal to realize that he may have to end Mina's suffering. He may have to kill her. And she's going through her tarot cards, Vanessa, and Sembene comes in and tells her that someone's here to see her. And she says, you can let Mr. Grey in. Slut alert. And so Dorian is like, hi, like, I'm glad you're better. I went traveling because I couldn't see you. And she's like not really super responsive. He allegedly went to Italy, and she says, welcome back. And he asks her if she can read his future. And she says, I don't know if you have one, bestie. Some people only have a past. And Dorian is trying really hard to reconnect with her, but she's not really having it, and I don't blame her. But what she could do is, in this situation, is communicate. Brona, meanwhile, is barely hanging on. And she's not dead yet, but Ethan is like praying because it worked with Vanessa, so he's hoping it'll work for her. But it isn't working. There's 2 random Americans. I don't have their pictures up. There's 2 random Americans who are seemingly after Ethan for some reason, and they start to tail him when he leaves Brona to go to the townhouse. Sir Malcolm is making his way downtown walking fast. He ends up at a gun store, and he's picking up a prototype of a gun that has an automatic firing mechanism. I don't know jack shit about guns, but he's getting like an automatic pistol. And Helen McCrory, aka Evelyn Paul, aka Madame Kali, is in the gun store for some reason. And she's talking to Sir Malcolm. It's a little bit flirty. And she asks after Vanessa. And Sir Malcolm is like, oh, I don't really see that much of her. I don't know how she is. I don't really see her. And he's like, sorry, I gotta go. Anyway, so at the theater, Caliban, the incel, is helping rehearse the show. And the lead guy, Simon, is being an asshole. Because of course he is. And I'm sorry. Caliban just really pisses me off this season. I want to reiterate that he does get better, but right now he's insufferable. So, like, it's because I've watched the rest of the show and I know how nice he can be. So to see him right now, it's like, bruh. Anyway, so Maud, the actress, confronts Caliban and brings him an orange. And this is the most he's probably ever spoken to a woman before. And she's like, oh, are you reading again? Thank you for the book, because he gave her a copy of Paradise Lost, after their last interaction. And he asks if she's reading it, and she's like, well, it's kind of long. She asks if he's read it, and he says, yes, there are lines that speak to him, and he recites one. She apologizes for how Simon was acting, and he makes you happy? And she's like, well, in a way, we take what we can, you know? And she's like, you don't have to hide your face from me. I get it. You know, like, my brother was in an industrial accident. I'm not afraid of you. And then she's like, I have to go. I'll see you later. She gives him a kiss on the head and leaves. He's having the best day ever as of that moment. Anyway, so Sir Malcolm is prepping his silly little gun, and Vanessa comes in and is like, can I speak with you? And she's like, you haven't been honest with me. And Sir Malcolm is like, what do you want? She's like, why didn't you take me on the ship? And he's like, I was trying to protect you. And she doesn't believe that shit, but he doesn't care. And she's like, what haven't you told me? And Sir Malcolm is like, oh, fine. I would sacrifice you to save my daughter. And I hope I can. That's literally verbatim. He's like, I hope I have the opportunity to do that. And Sir Malcolm is being a major, major asshole right now. So Caliban is doing his makeup for some reason. And it does not look good. He goes to Maud's dressing room, and this will be a problem. So he startles her, and she laughs at his makeup because it's like kind of shittily done. He's very awkwardly like, I brought you an orange. And she's like, you really shouldn't come in here. Cause she's like not fully dressed. Like she's in like her under things. And she's like, you really shouldn't come in here. And he's like, but Simon comes in here. Simon is her boyfriend. So like, obviously, but he doesn't realize the difference, I don't think. And she's like, how do you know that he goes in there? And instead of saying something like, oh, I've seen him like walking this way or whatever, like he doesn't have an answer for that. He can't really give an answer though without looking like a fucking freak, which is the sad part. So like there's nothing, absolutely nothing good that's going on here. So he's like, please have an orange with me. And he's like rapidly like approaching and like getting closer to her as he's saying it. And he's freaking her out. And she's like, please leave, like, please leave. But he keeps trying to ask her, and he kisses her. And when she doesn't want to kiss him, like he forcibly kisses her. And when she's like, no, like trying to get away from him, he grabs her by the throat and slams her against the wall, which this gets him promptly kicked out of the theater, as he fucking should be, because, okay, assault, what the fuck? And so Vincent, the guy who gave him the job at the theater, gives him his first hug ever and is like, remember us better than we are, which is a line that smacks, but he doesn't really deserve it, okay? So we see briefly up in the rafters of the theater are sleepy vampires. So we are back at Kew Gardens because Dorian told Vanessa that he would be waiting at Rothschild's slipper for her at 4:00. Vanessa does show up, God bless. And, they talk about the orchid that they saw, the Rothschild slipper, and he's like, do you want to walk with me? And she does. She's like, do you want me to explain the shit that happened? And Dorian is like, no, like, you don't need to do that. Vanessa is like, listen, I'm sorry. This is too dangerous for me personally. Like, I really do like you, but I got so majorly fucked up. Like, I'm sorry. You got me fucked up. You did. And Dorian is like head over heel. And Vanessa is like, I'm sorry. Like, and he's like, why? He's like, why do I feel like so strange? And she's like, it's the rejection. Because he's like never been rejected before, like ever. So this is very new to him. These two are so sicko for sicko. And she says, goodbye, Mr. Gray. And poor Dorian is like crying. Like he's upset. He's not like, you know, sobbing or anything, but like a tear rolls down. And that's not normal for him. Because he's like, oh, I'm crying. So I'm in my notes, I said, it's okay, slut of the century, you'll bounce back. So Caliban goes to Victor's, and Victor is like, well, your ass can't stay here. And Caliban is like, well, I didn't want to fucking stay here. And Victor is like, then why are you here? And Caliban is like, I had nowhere else and no one else to see, bitch. Aren't I pitiful? Like he's very like in a mood. And Victor is like, I'm not going to forgive you for murdering Van Helsing. Like, I'm really not going to forgive you for that. Nor for asking me to give you a fuck buddy. Like, I'm really not going to forgive you for that shit. And Caliban is having an emo moment. And Victor is actually, he's like behind him as Caliban is like sitting. And he's literally about to shoot him. And Caliban keeps talking about how sad he is. He's like, how can I even have a mate when I'm the problem? It's not my face, it's my spirit, it's my monstrous soul. And he's like, I'd rather be a corpse than the man I am. And he's like, go ahead, shoot me. I'd love for you to put me out of my fucking misery. And Victor is a pussy and can't fucking do it. I would have, just saying, I would have taken the opportunity to shoot him. Victor tries very awkwardly to comfort him instead and tells him to stay there. So Ethan knocks on Victor's door right after this, and he's like, I need you. He asks Victor to look at Brona, And she is like very barely hanging on. She's not quite dead, but she's very barely hanging on. Victor's like, listen, I can give you a sedative. It would ease things, but there's really not much left to do. He asks Brona if she's comfortable, and she said in her body, yes, but like, I'm scared. And Victor is like, don't be. You're stepping through a door, which is what his mother said to him when he thought he was going to be dying of his illness. His mother told him that dying is just stepping through a door. So he says the same thing to Brona. And Victor tells Ethan that it won't be long. Can you get me a basin of water? And in this moment where Ethan is gone, Victor tells Brona that he believes in a place between heaven and hell, between living and the dead. And he kills her. He smothers her to death. This is not the last we see of Billie Piper. She is being taken off of the wall, but this is not the last time we will see Miss Queen Billie Piper. Okay? But for now, she is dead. Rest in peace. So, Ethan comes back in the room. He is devastated. And Victor is like, don't worry, I'll take care of the body. He has a scheme, clearly. And so Ethan goes to a different pub to drown his sorrows, where he's confronted by the two Americans that were stalking him earlier, named Roper and Kidd. They're two Goonies for his father, essentially. They're Pinkertons who were charged to bring him back home. So Ethan attacks them both and manages to leave. He's suffering, okay? He links up with Vanessa at the theater because they're going to go attack the theater that night. And Vanessa offers him a cigarette and is like, I'm so sorry about Miss Croft. I'm sorry for your loss. And she's like, thank you for your kindness when I was ill. Like, I really appreciate that. So it's the theater showdown, baby. So they're in the theater after hours, and we have two teams. Ethan and Victor and Vanessa and Sir Malcolm, and they split up to look for clues. Sembene is with the boys. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. Sembene is with Ethan and Victor. So it's this team and then this team over here. So the team 2 finds the vampires in the rafters, and the boys get their guns out. So Ethan is dropped through the trapdoor that, you know, falls into like underneath the stage, and a brawl is on. He is fighting off vampires. The main bitch, another golem, is going after Sir Malcolm and Vanessa. And the boys in the basement are getting their shit rocked because Victor and Sembene jumped in after Ethan and are helping him down there. They're getting their shit rocked. But when Sir Malcolm kills Gollum, all of the vampires that are in the basement with the boys drop. Like, they all drop. I don't know if they're dead, but they all drop. Because apparently, like, they're kind of like a hive mind situation where, like, Gollum was controlling them all. Mina appears. She and Vanessa hug. It's all nice. But she's possessed. Sorry. Mina is like, she like turns Vanessa around and is like holding her by the throat. And she's like, what makes you think I wanted to be saved? And so Mina is about to bite Vanessa and turn her. And Sir Malcolm shoots Mina. She falls backwards, and Vanessa like gets out of her grasp and gets out of the way. And Mina is like, I'm your daughter. And Sir Malcolm goes, I already have a daughter. And shoots Mina, and she is dead. So Mina is dead. He really hates to love, like, to be Vanessa's dad. Like, this is a love-hate dad relationship. So Sir Malcolm is like, you were right. I was never gonna go to Africa. Like, they're back at the house now. They're back at the townhouse after this whole thing. And he's taking down his maps and stuff from the wall. And he's like, you're right. I was never gonna go to Africa. And he asks Vanessa, he's like, should we get a Christmas tree? And she says, like, yeah, we should, you know, we could have the boys come over and decorate it. Which is a scene that I would love to see. And so they have a little bit of a bonding moment. Victor is in his lab and he's going to get to work. He says to Caliban, he's like, you want to fucking mate? Fine. And he's going to reanimate Brona. So can I just I just want to reiterate that none of these bitches are good people. Like, this is very much a Wuthering Heights situation where none of these characters are good people, but they try. So Ethan is watching the ships go by sadly, and yet again, the Pinkertons show up. The two of them keep calling him a monkey for some reason. They're like, do you want us to bring you back like a monkey? Which, thinking about it now, I feel like is supposed to be racist. Actually, but because, you know, this is, still a terrible time in history. But anyway, so Ethan's like, they're like, oh, like, do we have a monkey here? Whatever. And Ethan is like, no monkey. Wolf. Yes, indeed, it is revealed that Ethan is a werewolf. He could, in theory, control when he turns into one, because this is not a full moon situation. He turns into one right then. And so he kills everyone in the Mariners Inn. And yeah, werewolf. So Vanessa is in the park from before with the church, from an earlier episode, and she goes into the church this time, and she talks to the pastor in the church and hints at an exorcism. And the pastor's like, listen, I've been around the block with exorcisms before, and the boy that I tried to help and everybody I tried to help died. And he's like, even if this can be verified, it's dangerous. This could be months, this could be years, and you have to answer the question, do you ever want to be normal? And that, my besties, is how season 1 of Penny Dreadful ends. So, we've done it. Season 1 has ended. People are missing from the board. We've suffered losses. But we'll only suffer as the seasons go on. I've said I was going to do a little bit of analysis. This is going to be like off the dome type of analysis. I didn't really write anything down. The biggest piece of analysis is that Sembene gets sidelined like there is no tomorrow. This show has a real problem with centering people of color, especially Black people, and their stories. We do eventually learn more about Sembene, but like, he should be focused on a lot more. He's not treated like the other main characters of the show. There's a real like imbalance between how like these three get their backstories really highlighted, and you get to see like all of their motivations and see what they're doing individually apart from each other, and including Dorian as well. So like these four are really given like the spotlight, and Sembene really isn't. And I will say, though, season 1 probably is the most cohesive season. It's really genuinely good. I like it a lot. But yeah, I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you want to see seasons 2 and 3? I'm willing to make more. And yeah, if you're interested in seeing more from me, subscribe, like, comment. I feel like a YouTuber now. And if you want to hear more from me, you can follow my Substack. I have a Substack where I write stuff. I write essays sometimes about things that bother me. Yeah, I'll leave my card in the description as well, I guess. So you can know more a bit about me. And yeah, all right, that's it. See you next time.